Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar on how much are your AP processes costing you. So today, our goal is to help you understand the hidden costs associated with inefficient AP processes and to introduce you to ExFlow, a cutting-edge accounts payable automation solution built inside D365 Business Central. We're going to show you how automation can transform your AP department from a cost center into a strategic asset, driving efficiency, reducing costs, and improving supplier relationships. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name's Tom Green, and I'm the partner manager here at SignuP Software. Joining me today, I've got Henry Long, who's one of our Microsoft Dynamics Business Central consultants. Henry's going to be taking us through a live demonstration of ExFlow and ExFlow data capture. So please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A, and we'll take some time to address them at the end of the presentation. Okay, so unsurprisingly, when we look into the current landscape of accounts payable, one of the most common complaints is that invoice and payment approvals are taking too long. Nearly half of AP leaders, 49% to be exact, believe these delays are a significant issue. These bottlenecks not only waste time, but risk damaging supplier relationships and incurring late fees. It's hard to believe in this day and age, paper invoices still account for nearly 50% of all invoices received by the average company. Despite the push over the last decade to go paperless, many businesses still have a long way to go. This dependency on paper leads to delays, errors, and higher processing costs, all of which add up over time. These inefficiencies really call out the importance of moving away from manual paper-based processes and embracing automation to reduce costs and improve overall efficiency. So let's take a quick look at some of the reasons why you should consider automating your accounts payable process. Here's some compelling data from a recent study from Ardent Partners comparing best-in-class AP automation to traditional AP processing methods. Should probably come as no surprise to see that when it comes to automation, best-in-class companies are achieving double the straight-through pass rates of their peers. They're spending much less time responding to supplier inquiries, which allows their AP teams to focus on more business-critical activities. When we consider efficiencies, the difference is profound. Best-in-class companies can process a single invoice in just over 3 days, whereas it takes a staggering 17 days for others. This speed in processing not only improves cash flow, but also reduces bottlenecks. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, how much are your AP processes costing you? The latest data tells us that we can reduce the cost of processing invoices by as much as 80%. And anecdotally, we've seen even bigger savings with many of our customers. As we consider automating your AP processes, let's focus on 3 key areas which are critical for success. When considering accounts payable automation, it's crucial to take a holistic approach that goes beyond simply streamlining individual tasks. A comprehensive strategy considers the entire AP process, from invoice capture to approval workflows and payment reconciliation. This approach ensures that automation not only reduces manual effort, but also enhances accuracy, compliance, and financial visibility across the business. Leveraging your technology is key to maximizing the benefits of accounts payable automation. By fully utilizing the capabilities of Business Central, you can create a seamless integrated AP process that enhances efficiency and accuracy. This means ensuring that your AP automation solution works harmoniously with Business Central, creating a unified platform that eliminates data silos and streamlines workflows. Measuring your success in accounts payable automation is essential to understanding the impact of your investment and ensuring continuous improvement. By tracking KPIs, you can gauge how effective your AP processes are and identify areas for further optimization. Key metrics to consider include invoice processing times, cost per invoice, payment accuracy, and early payment discounts captured. Monitoring these KPIs before and after automation allows you to quantify the time and cost savings achieved, as well as improvements in accuracy and compliance. Additionally, evaluating the reduction in manual errors and the level of vendor satisfaction can provide insight into the overall effectiveness of your AP automation. So, now we've explored the costs and inefficiencies associated with traditional AP processes, you're probably asking yourself, so how can you do something about it? Well, let me introduce you to a solution designed to address these challenges head-on, ExFlow, AP automation built into Business Central. A little bit about our company. Sign-Up Software was founded 25 years ago in Stockholm and have focused purely on developing AP automation within Microsoft ERP. From the early days of Navision and AX right through to our current offerings with Business Central and Finance and Operations. ExFlow is an accounts payable automation solution that's seamlessly integrated into Business Central. With over 20 years experience, ExFlow has become a trusted name in AP automation, with a global footprint now spanning over 60 countries and more than 100 million invoices managed. Our Australian operations are based here in North Sydney, so we've got boots on the ground locally. Our support team are in Melbourne, and we have consultants in Sydney, Brisbane, and Kuala Lumpur. We have a very long-standing relationship with Fujifilm Microchannel. Here's an example of some of the Australian businesses that we look after together. With over 2,000 ExFlow customers across the globe, we have a wealth of experience across a diverse range of horizontal markets, which enables us to understand and address the unique challenges faced by businesses in various industries. So, before we go into our live demonstration, I'd like to leave you with a few key points on why using ExFlow inside Business Central has been a game changer for many organizations. ExFlow captures all invoices through a single channel, whether they're paper, email, EDI, or e-invoices. This streamlines the process, reducing manual labor and minimizing errors, particularly in tasks like three-way matching, contract matching, and approval workflow. Leveraging your Business Central investment is crucial, and ExFlow is designed to do just that. Being fully integrated with Microsoft Dynamics D365, it minimizes duplication and ensures that your AP processes are secure, efficient, and compliant with company policies. This also means there's no need for complex integrations. Everything works within the familiar Business Central environment, giving you a single source of truth and real-time data access. ExFlow also utilizes cutting-edge technologies like robotic process automation, machine learning, and AI to further automate and optimize your AP processes. This not only increases efficiency, but helps mitigate the risk of fraud and control costs effectively. With ExFlow, you get full transparency across the entire AP process. Real-time AP data is available across your enterprise through Power BI, allowing you to monitor performance and make informed decisions quickly. ExFlow ensures compliance with your company policies, helping to minimize the risk of fraud, and it also supports full process analytics, giving you control over every aspect of your AP operation. And finally, ExFlow significantly lowers the cost of processing invoices. It captures discounts, reduces penalties, all while leveraging your existing Business Central investment. This means you're not only saving money, but also enhancing the overall efficiencies of your AP department. So now I'd like to hand over to Henry, and he's going to take us through a live demonstration of ExFlow. Over to you, Henry.
Okay, so Thank you, Tom, for that introduction. So obviously today I'm going to be demonstrating the daily processing of AP invoices using some out-of-the-box features within the ExFlow solution. By the end of the demonstration, you will have seen how we can help enhance the efficiency around invoice processing and reporting. Before I go into the actual software demonstration, I'd like to just give you a quick overview of our solution, which is the diagram you're seeing on the screen right now. In terms of technology, there are two components that make up the ExFlow solution. The ExFlow Data Capture, which is our OCR tool, and then ExFlow within Dynamics 365 Business Central, where ExFlow resides as a fully integrated module. The benefits of being built in is that ExFlow utilizes the master data configuration and logic of standard D365. It does not attempt to reinvent the wheel and simply extends or enhances the standard functionality within BC. So the process starts where your vendor sends in their invoices as a PDF attachment to a centralized email account. From there, it can then be forwarded to ExFlow Data Capture for scanning and interpretation. Users will then verify the data that is captured on the invoice, and then Data Capture creates an XML file which packs the data extracted from the invoice so that it can then be imported into BC along with the invoice image. When the invoice gets brought into ExFlow, it can then be matched to a PO if it's a PO invoice, or it can auto-code it if it's a non-PO invoice. Both of these functions happen in the same area and can really help to enhance the efficiency of your AP team. ExFlow can then match the invoice to a PO, or it can then auto-code it. Oh, sorry, no, I went through that already. So essentially, it is able to do the work required to get the invoice ready for payment. So just to set the scene, I'll be wearing two hats in this demonstration. I'll first wear the hat of an AP officer and then as an approver. As an AP officer, I'll first go into ExFlow Data Capture. So for this demonstration, we're going to assume that the invoices are sent to a centralized AP inbox as a PDF attachment to an email, either from your suppliers directly or from people within the business. The email can then be sent in to Data Capture. What you see here is my dashboard view. This is a list of the invoices that have been sent into ExFlow Data Capture. Now, it is worth noting that Data Capture does support splitting single files into multiple documents where your supplier sends you multiple invoices inside a single file. So you don't have to manually upload or send in the file for however many invoices that might exist in that file. So I'll first get started and jump into a more detailed view of my invoice. This is what I, as an AP officer, will see if I want to confirm that what has been captured by ExFlow Data Capture. We have an invoice image here in the middle, and then you've got predefined header fields on the right, and then you can also capture line information down here at the bottom of the screen, which are especially useful for capturing line information for your PO invoices, like this example that I have here. ExFlow Data Capture works like a traffic light system. So this means that all the fields must be green before it is able to create the XML file containing the captured data to be imported into D365. Some of the reasons that the fields are not green could be for validation reasons, such as what I have here in this example, where the invoice date is more than 90 days old. Another reason is that Data Capture might be unsure that what it has captured is correct and therefore requires some confirmation. Now, if I want to confirm the captured information on the invoice, all I simply have to do is hit Tab on my keyboard, and then it will become green, like you just saw there. If I want to capture the correct, if I want to correct it and capture other data, what I can do is I can either zoom in here and double click on the area that I want to capture, or I can hit Control on my keyboard and just draw a box around the area that I want to capture. Then all I need to do is hit Tab and then change that, or clear that the validation warning and change it to a green tick. By performing these actions, I'm utilizing the machine learning capabilities and teaching it where to capture the relevant data for the supplier going forward. ExFlow Data Capture is able to use machine learning to look for certain phrases such as invoice number or INV no, for example, as common notations to try and capture the data correctly the first time it receives the invoice for that supplier. Now, all of the fields that you see on the screen here are configurable. meaning that you can capture different sets of data for a New Zealand entity and then a different set of data for an Australian entity. Now, moving on to the line section down here, if I just clear this up, what I can do is, once I click on this little pen icon, I can teach data capture how to read the first line on the invoice. And then from there, it will be able to extrapolate and capture the other lines on the invoice. This can extend across to multiple pages on the invoice. So if you have invoices with 2 or more pages, data capture can read those lines and across all of those pages. So if I go through and continue capturing the rest of the fields here, you'll notice that I have this gray box on this second line here, and that's data capture extrapolating based off of that first line, how to read the remaining lines on my invoice. Now I want to draw special attention to the unit costs of my invoice lines here. You'll see there that that first line for my first item is $9.30, and then the unit cost for my second item is $4.90. Now that all of my fields are all green, I'm able to export this invoice out into Business Central, or ExFlow within Business Central, and all I need to do is click on the OK here. So since we've captured and confirmed the invoice data using OCR, let's see what happens when we've imported it into Business Central. So when you open up Business Central, continuing to wear my AP Officer's hat, you'll see here I've logged into Business Central, and you'll notice that what I have open here is a very standard looking Business Central screen. Now, ExFlow is a completely built-in solution to Microsoft and is also certified by Microsoft as well. So by being built in, that means that there are no integration issues or costs, and also no synchronization delays. When you install ExFlow, you also have the ability of using an ExFlow Accountant Role Center, which makes it so that all of the ExFlow pages that an AP officer would be using on a day-to-day basis can be front and center when they log into Business Central. Now, before I start, I obviously want to preface that all of the steps that I'm about to show you can and should be automated. If I had the automation turned on, I wouldn't really have anything to show you. So for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to show you the manual steps involved. The first place I'm going to go into is my ExFlow import journal. Now, I'm just going to import that last document that we went, and as it's going through, we have the header information here on the upper section of this page of my screen, where each line represents a different invoice and the line information for the selected invoice at the bottom. We also have the invoice image on the right-hand side, which is the image file attached to the invoice using the standard incoming documents of Business Central. So this means that no matter where you are in Business Central, if it's an ExFlow invoice, you'll have access to the invoice image as well. For instance, you can view the invoice image in your vendor ledger entries after you've posted the invoice. Now, I want to highlight that during the import of the invoices from ExFlow Data Capture, a couple of important actions have been performed by ExFlow. Some of those important actions worth mentioning is the posting date. So you'll notice that the posting date has been assigned automatically based on the invoices, based on the date that we have brought the invoices in. By this one here, just for simplicity of the configuration that I want to show you. Excuse me. Then also, the invoice has, ExFlow has automatically assigned the vendor account belonging to this. You might have noticed during the OCR step that the vendor account was assigned to the invoice as well. And this happens because Data Capture holds a copy of the vendor master list from your Business Central environment, so that you only have to maintain a single vendor list. Another thing you may have noticed with the invoice that I have on the screen here is that the lines of my invoice has automatically been coded as well. This can happen based on rules such as the vendor predefined account, ExFlow purchase code, and/or an ExFlow invoice reference. So as you can see here with this first invoice, you won't be able to see it because it's blocked by my invoice image. But if I scroll across, you'll notice that I have a value in my ExFlow purchase code. This ExFlow purchase code is essentially functioning as a coding template, which means that I can tell the ExFlow how I want my invoices to be coded whenever an invoice is brought in for this particular vendor. Now, on the flip side, or taking that a step further, is using the ExFlow reference. So what I've done here is I've captured my account number on my invoice. Optus hopefully is a vendor that most of us are familiar with, where you will typically receive an invoice, the same monthly invoice every month, and you'll be coding it to exactly the same GL account or GL accounts plural, and they will also be going to the same approvers. The amounts usually are fixed, and so as an approver, you may not want to be reviewing the invoice every month. So what we can do is we can utilize a function called ExFlow contracts, which essentially gives you PO logic for a non-PO invoice. What that means is that I can designate a limit for my contract for Optus so that every month when I receive an invoice, provided that it is within that amount, the configured amount, the invoice can be automatically approved. You can't see that function just yet because we haven't sent the invoice out for approval, but you'll see that when I go through the next section when we talk about approvals. So every time this particular account number is brought in for the Optus invoice, it'll know to automatically code it to this account and send it to the relevant approver, provided that it is within the threshold. If it is not within the threshold, then it'll go out for approval. And then so then the relevant manager can then validate the information on that invoice. The next thing to go over is for the purchase order invoices. So similar to my non-PO invoice, non-PO invoices, matching of the invoice lines can be matched to my purchase order lines. So you'll see here when I brought the invoice in for the other Officeworks invoice that we brought in earlier, that the receipt lines for my invoice, for my PO, have been brought across as well. Now, if I scroll across here, you'll notice that I have a direct unit cost here of $9.30, and then the direct unit cost of my order of $8.98. So there is a bit of a discrepancy for that first line, but I do have a perfect match for my second line. So what should we expect to happen there? With this other example that I have, they do match up perfectly here. So the expectation is because the purchase order that I have has already been approved, but the invoice matches up with it exactly, then it should be automatically approved. But for this situation where I only have partially perfect matched for my invoice, what should I expect to happen there? Again, I will go through that in the approval section. Now, another thing also worth mentioning is the approvers on the invoice. With this, you'll notice if I scroll down to my approvers section here, that some approvers have been assigned to my invoices. So what this means is ExFlow is able to automatically assign approvers based on approval rules that we have configured within ExFlow. So depending on dimension combinations, or however we've coded the invoice, whether it is a price mismatch, like with the Officeworks invoices there, or if it's for depending on the dimension or vendor, we can assign a different approver to the invoice. Now, excuse me. Now, you might also notice that as part of the action messages that I have on here, there is a little warning message that is telling me that I cannot post or I cannot create this invoice. If I scroll down, this warning message that is showing up here is telling me that the due date of my invoice is more than 90 days old. So similar to the invoice validation, similar to the validation in data capture, this is telling us there that this invoice is rather old or rather dated, and is giving us a warning to make sure that we are not processing fraudulent invoices. All I need to do is accept this warning and then verify my document, and that warning message will be able to disappear. Now, in terms of how these action messages work, is that they are simply just a way of giving AP a way of validating the invoice lines that have been assigned to the invoice. So for things where if your input lines or your lines here total is different to the total that has been captured on your invoice, AP will have a clear indication of what that balancing issue is and be able to rectify it accordingly. Other action messages include duplication checks. So if you are processing a invoice number that has already been posted or might currently be open already, That will show up in your action messages as well and tell you where that duplicate invoice is. I can now move on to the next step of my invoices. So now that all my invoices are clear of any action messages, I can then go to create and batch create. And what this will do is this can create all of the invoices that I have in my import journal that don't have any action messages on them and send them out to approval to the business. So for my approvers, they will now be able to action the invoices accordingly. And I'll move on to my ExFlow approval status screen. So similar to the import journal, you can see the header information up at the top. You've got some line information down here at the bottom, where you will see the invoice lines as well as the approvers for the selected invoice, and also the document image on the side over here, which is kind of a little bit funny. So from this approval status page, AP officers can perform maintenance tasks, such as taking actions on rejected invoices or following up on invoices that have been put on hold. You can also use it as a way of being able to follow up on approvers, as you'll be able to see when the invoice was created and when it was sent out for approval, and therefore be able to see if an approver is taking especially long to process their invoices. Now, you'll notice that a couple of the invoices here already have a status of ready for posting. So if I jump straight into those invoices, that first one is our Optus invoice, where you can see there, if I scroll across on my lines, you'll see the comment that says that the invoice has been automatically matched by the system because it was all within the threshold that I had set up in my ExFlow contract. Then for the Officeworks invoice, all of my lines there have already been approved because they match up exactly with the receipts that we had in Business Central for my purchase order. Coming down to the other PO invoice that we had, so the answer to the question is that what we can do is we can have approval on the line level. So for the line that did not match, where we had the discrepancy of our unit cost for the $9.30 against the $8.98, that invoice line hasn't been approved. Whereas for the second line, where the invoice lines and the unit cost matched up exactly with the receipts, has been automatically approved by the system, and therefore our approver only has to review the line that has a variance on it. Then coming back up to our first up consultants invoice here, it is worth noting that we're able to have different approvers for different departments or whatever dimensions that you may be using, so that the approvers only have to action the portion of the invoices that is relevant to them. So in the first line, it will be going to myself as an approver, and then also going to my manager for an approver as well. Now, moving on, now I'm going to put on my approvers cap and move to the ExFlow approval portal. I'm going to refresh that page so we can see our new invoices. Now, before I jump into the actual approval portal page, what I'm going to show you is the approvers email, approval notification email. So with this, your approvers will be getting an email notification containing a list of the invoices for them to action. The email will come as a consolidated report, like you see on the screen here, where regardless of the number of invoices you have, the approver will only receive one email. So you don't have to worry about approvers being bombarded with emails if they have multiple invoices to approve. They will just receive an email depending on the schedule that has been configured, and therefore they can then go into the link or go into a saved URL to then open up the approval portal to then action their invoices. So jumping back in, you'll notice here that I have a whole list of invoices already, which is different to the 4 invoices that we had in the approval status. And the reason for that is because approvers sometimes will have access to multiple companies to approve invoices. So this will give them a consolidated view, and they don't have to jump between screens if they need to approve for more than one entity. If they need to approve on a single entity, they can always go in and filter down and then approve, and then just simply review the invoices for the single entity that they want to be working on. Now, jumping into our first invoice, keeping it nice and simple with the non-PO invoice, you have, similar to the rest of ExFlow, you have your header information up here at the top, and then you've got line information down here at the bottom. With the line information on the invoice, you can see there I have the ability to code and update the coding on my invoice if needed. Now, not every business or not every business likes to have their approvers making coding changes. We do also have the ability to restrict that if need be, but at its most, we can have it so that approvers are able to make coding changes. And if they do need to make coding changes, the approvers don't need to know what the financial codes, the GL account codes are. They simply just need to know the name, and they'll be able to search for it there and type in the name and select the corresponding GL account. Same can be said for the dimensions, so they'll be able to make all of the adjustments that they need to make for the invoice when they go to approve it. If need be, the approvers also have the ability to add or change the line coding of the invoice. So say that this line needs to be split to 600 if need be, then they can just do it like this and have it split into two different lines of 600 and 200. Then when the new line has been adjusted, they can then select the corresponding account codes. I'm going to undo that very quickly. Now, in terms of approving the invoices, all the user needs to do is either hit approve down here with a big green tick at the bottom of the page, or if they need to take action on the individual lines, they can simply click on the checkbox to choose the corresponding action. Other functions that the approver can take on an invoice is that they have the ability to perform a chat with the AP team if they ever need to make discussions or take clarifications on the invoice. So you can simply do an @ here and say @admin and then send your corresponding message. With that chat, you get a full audit trail of the conversation, so then AP and the approver don't have to download the invoice, take it off system, and then email each other to communicate. All of that communication happens on this one page here, and it makes it significantly easier. Then you also have a little paperclip icon up here at the top, which allows your approvers to add in any supporting documentation that they might need to add. So like things like a proof of delivery can be assigned and attached here, or AP also have the ability to do it themselves as well. All you need to do then is, once you're happy with the invoice and you're happy to approve it, you can simply hit save because we've got that selected over there, and it will disappear, and then I can then jump into my next invoice. Now, you might notice that this particular invoice layout is slightly different, or the layout of my lines is slightly different to the layout of my invoice, with the non-PO invoice. And the reason for that is because since this is a PO invoice, we also have to take into account the order number, as well as the quantity and unit cost of those of our lines. Now you'll see that there is a line, there are two lines within for the quantity and unit costs for each of those lines. And this here is to reflect the invoice quantity and unit costs at the top. And then italicized underneath it is the quantity and unit cost of my order. So you'll see there the $9.30 and the $8.98. This makes it significantly easier for the approvers to be able to validate what issues have happened, or what issues have caused the invoice line to specifically go out for approval for them. Whereas they can see that that second line there has already been approved because it matches perfectly, so no action is needed on that line. If they do need to see additional information on the PO, they can simply click on the order number and you'll get a little snippet or snapshot of information from the purchase order without having to go into Business Central. Now, I'm not about to approve this invoice because there is one more thing that I would like to show you before we jump into before we go and approve that invoice. Our web approval portal is device agnostic. So as I'm trying to show you with the little border here, you'll be able to see all of the invoices and work through the approval portal on a touch-enabled device, whether it is an iPad, phone, so on. You have the ability to work through all of your documents the same way that you would on a desktop device. And then you can simply go into your invoice, do the coding changes that you need or approve it, and then you can simply say, I want to approve this invoice. So let's say I'm happy with this unit cost. Maybe there's been an adjustment and that price, the price of my PO needs to be updated. Or sorry, the price of my unit costs of my items need to be updated. So I just simply hit approve. Then I can go back into the system there and then update my PO accordingly. Then once that's all done, if I put my approver cap back on for a second, you see here that the status of my invoices are showing as approved. And you can see that the approval has come through pretty much immediately in real time. The second line still needs approval, so I cannot actually post this invoice. But for this other PO invoice that we had, which was pending my approval, has been fully approved. So all I need to do is verify the changes there, and that document will be changed to ready for posting. So all that is left to do is I can then go to post batch, and this will automatically post any invoices that have the status of ready for posting. As I mentioned at the start of the demo, that can happen automatically. So all AP have to do is simply just do a verified change on any approved invoices so that they have the ability to validate any coding changes that may have happened by an approver. And then the posting job can then run and post the invoices whenever they're ready, or post the invoice at maybe the end of the day, if that is a designated choice to run that posting job. Now, before I close out my demonstration, I do also want to mention that ExFlow does also support Power BI reports. So if you have a Power BI license, we have some templates readily available for you to use, which have some very useful information there. So things like statistics about how long it takes approvers to go through their invoices. As you can see, with average approval days per approver. My personal favorite is the average approval days because you can really incentivize or really push, maybe make a competition for approvers to approve invoices as quickly as possible. You also have some other nifty bits of data here with the Power BI reports, where you have cost invoice overview so that you can see which volume of invoices you have and which vendors give you the most volume, and could it be made more efficient with processing.